Happy lunch hour, guys. Okay, it is Friday, right about 11 o'clock Eastern here. And yes, I am a glutton for punishment. I just spent 6 hours watching the entire CyberPolygon conference. And I'm fortunate that my ears aren't bleeding and my eyes haven't just popped out of my head. This was interesting to say the least. Okay, now, lay the premise to you a little bit. I don't know what the location was, but I have a feeling it was done in Moscow. All right. Because even on the homepage, it said, GMT +3 or UTC +3. So figuring out it was 5 o'clock or whatever. So it was Moscow time. And, again, you had all of the moderators/interviewers were Russian. And I'd say probably half, if not maybe a little bit more, of the speakers were Russian. Okay, which is fine, no big deal. I mean, more power to them. Okay. So as I'm watching this, and as I said yesterday, going over this morning, going over all the topics. A lot of it was just gobbledygook. Okay, it seemed to be people promoting themselves, or the hey, look at me, or this is what we're doing. Talking about their company or their organization. Like I said, you had people from Sberbank and Visa and MasterCard and Wozniak from Apple. Everybody was there was a lot of salesmanship in it. Okay, to start there. But what I found most interesting about the whole 6 hours was that there was no dissension whatsoever, okay? It was all a bunch of people agreeing with each other. Again, it was a bunch of bobbleheads doing all this. Even the moderators/interviewers didn't push back on answers to their questions whatsoever. Now, again, given this, the whole conference was done in Russian and also in English. And the actual interviews were all done in English, and then there was also a Russian translation. There wasn't an Italian or a Spanish or French or Chinese or anything like that. It was a Russian translation of an English conference. Okay, so I'll say this about the moderators and the interviewers. They were all Russians. Okay, you could tell by their accents. Pretty obvious, okay? I mean, I think I'm an expert on listening to a Russian accent all day. But so they weren't doing the interviews in their native language. And obviously they all speak English, but you all know as well as I do, you're going to understand a lot more in your native language than you are in a secondary or tertiary or third or whatever, would be language. And you could tell that they were reading from cue cards or a teleprompter whatsoever. Not an issue. All right. But so I don't know how much they really could push back or question, ask a follow-up question to someone who had answered a question, because they may not have understood it all. So, all things considered, that's kind of how this went. So as we went along, the beginning was, like I said, mind-numbing, bleeding ears, going, oh my God, get to something that's important, okay? And, the first few topics were, who cares? But they had started the supply chain exercise, and this is the thing that the thing we're most concerned about. This is the actual hackathon, if you will, where they had a red team who were the hackers and blue teams who were the supposed corporate security people or whatever to prevent this supply chain hack. Now, what was very interesting was a couple hours into the exercise, believe it or not, the CyberPolygon got hacked themselves in real time. Okay, there was a denial of service attack that was used against this exercise. So, and I'm not saying who it was or anything like that, but there was an outside hacking group, had nothing to do with it, that tried to hack the exercise going on at CyberPolygon. Okay. They stopped it. Okay, but as you guys know, denial of service attacks aren't exactly the most sophisticated attack. But it was just interesting that it got into their system and they had a DOS attack. So, and again, remember, we are supposed to be talking about the premier technology people and cybersecurity people in the world are involved in this, but a DOS attack got through. All right, so even their original setup wasn't secure. So then, as it got a little longer, it was about 9:30 our time or my time Eastern. Okay, like I said, the conference was held in English, and there was also a Russian translation, so you could watch the English feed or you could watch the English feed with a Russian translator. The English feed got lost. Okay, just suddenly the screen just went black. About 45 seconds later, they popped in the Russian feed. So you could see everybody talking in English, but all you heard over it was the translation in Russian. It lasted about 5 minutes, and eventually they got the English feed back. But I found it extremely funny that here we are, second incident into this technology, the technology gurus around the world, the most important technology people from all over the place, and all these cybersecurity people, and they lose a teleconference. Okay. I mean, and it's not like this was done on Zoom or something like this. This was an in-house teleconference system. This wasn't Zoom or Skype or YouTube or anything like that. Okay. This was their own stuff. So 2 errors, and we're 4.5 hours in. All right. Now, getting into the topics that they discussed, and this kind of got interesting. When they got into talking about regulations, and remember I said this morning, that they want to have international regulations. The speaker suggested that regulators should have the authority to block information that was put on the internet. Okay, we want to have an international internet with international regulations, and that there should be international regulators with the authority to block information that is put up. Now, again, remember this whole exercise, or this whole conference was was organized by the World Economic Forum, and it was basically supported by the Russian Federation. Okay, now all the facilitation and everything like that. Now, remember, free speech is not a right in Russia. Okay, and this was a Russian-speaking speaker, or Russian speaker, I guess. So basically, what they're promoting to be an international standard is censorship. And this was basically directly said. Okay. So then they cut over to the CyberPolygon exercise, okay, the actual hackathon, if you will. And like I said, there were 200 technical teams, blue teams, okay, the security people, from 48 different countries that were participating in this exercise. Now, this was the first exercise that they did. 5 or 6 teams were able to patch all the vulnerabilities in the first scenario. I mean, it's 194 or 195 of those world-class security teams failed. That tells you the vulnerability of our supply chain. Okay. Now, according to what was said on the conference, the conference is over. The exercise continues. The exercise is a 24-hour exercise. It won't end until 5 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow. Okay. In the first exercise, all right, you had 2.5% to 3% of the teams successfully stop the hack. Okay. 97.5% failed. That's the vulnerability we've got. Okay. Now, the catchy part was this, and they didn't put this out till the very, 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 very end. Didn't say it. And yes, I sat through all 6 hours. The overall results of the hackathon will not be made public until November of 2021. Okay? I mean, I don't see why you can't make them public tomorrow. Okay? The event's over. Why do you need to wait 4 months? Well, gee, maybe we need to polish those numbers a little bit, do what all good communist organizations do, spin, twist, do whatever you can. All right. So then continuing on, we got into the last one, which I really didn't think was important, as I said this morning. Like I said, most of these topics were just gobbledygook. It was self-promotion, all right? But in the cyberbullying section, and like I said this morning, this is a parent's right. We don't need governments or anything like that to tell it. They were talking about restricting speech online, that children should not make disparaging comments online. Now, I'll agree with that, okay? I'll agree with the cyberbullying part. You don't need to be like that girl who got jailed or whatever. I think it was in Massachusetts for talking her boyfriend into committing suicide. If you don't have any balls, if you don't do it, yada yada. The kid eventually kills himself. That's wrong, no question. Okay, so I'm going to agree to a point there. But they also insinuated that they shouldn't disagree with other people's thoughts online. So let's say some 12-year-old kid is making comments how mommy and daddy are, great supporters of AOC. Let's just say that. And nobody else, none of their classmates should be in that same chat room or wherever the kids go, or Instagram or Twitter or whatever. It says, but I don't think AOC is good for this. They're not supposed to challenge each other, all right? So basically what the World Economic Forum is supporting here is groupthink. Now, I want to see if it works both ways. Let's say, for example, that you have that same kid or a kid says, well, I think Marjorie Taylor Greene is an absolute genius. And, what would happen if somebody, do you honestly think they're going to say to a kid who disagreed, no, you shouldn't say that? This is, again, groupthink. As long as you agree with our side, you're allowed to put it up. If you don't, then we're going to shut you down. Okay. Again, this goes back into what I said before about they're promoting censorship and they don't want disparaging. So if you read between the lines, which there was a lot of reading between the lines to do this, if anybody is as much of a glutton for punishment as I am, you can go back and watch this. I think it's cyberpolygon.com is where it was. Let me just look real quick. Yes, cyberpolygon.com, and you can go watch the replay. Okay. So that was kind of the crux of what was in there. All right. And I mean, I'm taking notes as we were going, and it's like, the one time the guy called Klaus Schwab Santa Claus was kind of interesting. But, there were other little bits of things, but, that weren't really important, and I didn't want this to be a 2-hour video. All right. But then the last thing, and this was the most horrifying at all, was the closing speech by the host. And again, this was a Russian guy speaking in English, and you could blatantly tell he was reading from a teleprompter. This was not coming from his head, okay? But I'm going to read you this quote. The transition to cyber is accelerating due to the coronavirus situation. It seems that the pandemic might be a long-lasting thing which could leave us in an unprecedented arms race against the virus. Here's the key. It might very well be that in the future, we will be updating our immune systems with newer vaccines, just like we update our antivirus software on a regular basis. Now, I know there's going to be people that said, there was a story today that the FDA and the CDC came out and said, maybe with some of these vaccines, you're not going to need boosters. That was on the Pfizer one. And of course, Pfizer's saying, no, that's not true, because Pfizer, of course, wants to sell the booster shots. They want to make money. Okay. But when somebody had the cojones to say, updating our immune systems, I'm not a computer. I'm not a cyborg. Okay. This isn't Terminator 4 or 5 or whatever number we're on here. All right. You're not going to go, here's the new whatever we're going to put in you so we can control you. Maybe it's just a very poor choice of words. But again, I'm going to say these are supposed to be the creme de la creme in the technology world, the World Economic Forum, the most important people in the world. and they're comparing my immune system to the antivirus software that I have on my computer, that, guys, should scare the shit out of you. Have a good one. Pinball out.